that's what happened in Florida. Don't expect any more press exposés of the Florida law. The gun lobby has taken care of that. Now, a lot of this push towards shall-issue laws has been fueled by John Lott's research, and I just want to make a few brief remarks about it because it has been influential in a number of state legislatures around the country. John basically compared, for a period ending in 1992, he compared states that had enacted shall-issue laws with states that had not, and he concluded that if all states had enacted these laws, there would have been far less violent crime, and actually the effect on crime was quite dramatic, according to John. I'm not a statistician. I'm not going to run regressions for you today. I just want you to know that John's research was long ago discredited by economists and public health scholars at a veritable who's who of major research universities, including Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Berkeley, Georgetown, Johns Hopkins, Carnegie Mellon, and others. And these researchers found multiple problems with John's analysis, but the overarching problem was simply the failure to control for important variables that are associated with changes in crime rates. And it's difficult. It is difficult. There are so many causal factors that play out when you're talking about increases and decreases in violent crimes. But I would simply cite another researcher who is one of the favorites of the NRA. They're constantly citing him, Gary Kleck of Florida State. And Kleck found that it is very likely that John Lott's claimed effect from these shall-issue laws was attributable to other factors not controlled for in this study. But I think the most devastating critique of John's work has come from two economists at the Yale Law School, John Donahue and Ian Ayres, who basically they've looked at the data not to 1992, but the data to 2006, encompassing a lot more of these shall-issue laws that were passed over that period of time. And they concluded not only is there no evidence that these laws in any way diminished crime, but they are actually associated with substantial and statistically significant increases in aggravated assault. I hear the claim made all the time that no study shows that these laws led to more crime. That is absolutely untrue. There are studies that show this. It's just that the proponents of liberalized concealed weapons laws ignore the evidence to the contrary. So there really has been a consensus, I think, in the research community that this grand experiment with liberalized concealed carry has been a grand failure. I would also mention that John's research correlating these shall-issue laws with reduced risk of mass shootings in public places has also been refuted. There have been scholars who have said his methodology is wrong on that one, and if you actually use the right methodology, you get no deterrent effect on mass shootings in public places. So, I'm not a statistician, but I will say that even a cursory look at state violent crime rates provides very little evidence that criminals in these shall-issue states are cowering in fear of law-abiding citizens carrying guns when they don't seem to be cowering in fear of criminals carrying guns. And let me go back to Florida, John's favorite state. Florida, which the NRA says has more concealed carry holders than any other state, passed its shall-issue law in 1987. Every year since 1987, Florida has ranked in the top 5 states in the country in violent crime. Most of those years it ranked in the top 2. There is simply no evidence that these laws have reduced violent crime. And as I say, there is an alternative vision, and that is reasonable laws that, like background checks, for example, like limitations on magazine capacity, that can reduce gun deaths and injury and still allow law-abiding citizens to have guns. Thank you very much.
Well, we are going to take a break here, but I'm gonna. John, you want to stop? I just want to give John an opportunity. because he invoked the name personally, part of my rule as a moderator, my personal rule is you can go after anybody's research or talk specifically about numbers, but if you invoke a name, then I always give the opportunity a minute or two to respond if you'd like to do so.
Appreciate that. I mean, there's been a lot of work that's been done since my original paper with David Mustard. And in that work, we did look at data from 1977 through 92. The second edition of my book looked at it through 96. The third edition of my book looked at it, the city, county, and state data through 2005. What I can say is, if you look across all the academic work that are there, I don't think Dennis gave a very accurate presentation. If you look at referee journal publications, there are 18 studies that have found statistically significant drops in violent crime, many of them larger than what I found. There's 10 that claim to find either small drops or no net change. And there's 0 refereed studies among economists and criminologists that have found a bad effect from it. If you look at non-refereed papers, there's 3 that claim to find a drop. There's 1 that claims to find no statistically significant change, and there's 2 that claim to find what Dennis was saying. Wish I could have a PowerPoint that works here. But basically, if you take the 2 law review type things that Dennis is talking about, what you find is they claim to find a small temporary increase in crime. And the way to think about this is that if crime is falling at an increasing rate, even if you look at the year-by-year measures that they have in their paper, they find a drop. There's no increase. They claim to find a temporary increase, but even they say after the second year, it's fall. And the reason why they get an increase is they're basically fitting a straight line to curved data. And so it overpredicts to the beginning, kind of underpredicts in the middle, and overpredicts at the end. And then they're only looking at the net impact for the first 5 years of the law, where it's basically this kind of straight line overpredicting the curved line that's there. But, I think there's a reason why the vast majority of refereed work since their paper was published has not found the type of claim that they're making, but even close. And I'll just say on the multiple victim public shooting stuff, there's a paper that he's talking about that claims to find a drop, but not statistically significant, from the presence of concealed handguns. The big difference between what Bill Landis and I did and what they did is Bill and I looked at a lot of different combinations for measuring multiple victim public shootings. The only one that they looked at were cases involving 4 or more people killed. And the problem is there's just not a lot of cases like that. And when you're talking about trying to control for hundreds of factors, you can get a drop, but it's not statistically significant. When you look at 3 or more people killed, 2 or more people killed, 4 or more people killed or wounded, 3 more people killed or wounded, 2 more people killed or wounded, all those other ones get statistically significant results. The pattern is the same, but there's just a lot more data that you're able to get there, and you're able to go and get statistically significant results. And it's the claim of not trying to control for things. It's interesting. I try to control for lots of different types of gun control laws, 13 and all. The paper that he referred to, the only one they look at is right to carry. I also have tried to control for cocaine. It's a weird debate, and I don't really know what to do with this, but if anybody has even the first edition of my book, I know some people have it here, you'll find a discussion in there where I try to account for cocaine. The first paper had it, second edition had it, third edition has long discussions about this. But if you're going to ask Dennis to identify the big thing that they claim I haven't tried to account for, it's cocaine and the impact there. But we try to do it in lots of different ways. One of the ways we try to do it is not just have measures of prices for cocaine, but one of the neat things that we try to do with Steve Bronhardt at the University of Texas, paper we have in the American Economic Review, we looked at all counties that bordered each other on opposite sides of state borders across the whole country. And to see what happens to the crime rates in one county that's in a state that adopts a law relative to the other county, touching it right across the state border without it. And what we found was that when states adopt these laws, the counties right on that side of the border see a drop, and there's about an increase equal to about 20% of the drop in the neighboring county. Well, the thing is, if you look at urban counties that are right next to each other, it's pretty hard to say that counties that are right next to each other, that cocaine can affect one and not affect the other. You're going to have some spillover that's going to be there. And it's actually a pretty powerful test for the fact that it's the change in the right to carry law and not the cocaine that's actually driving it. And so anyway, I could go through many other points, but that gives you a rough idea.
Well,